everyone, welcome back to ASX Market Watch and charting trend signals around the world. Guys, I have to say it's absolutely fantastic to have you here checking out the markets with me. What we're doing is we're seeing which way the world indices are heading because we believe that 3 out of 4 stocks might follow the overall market. So if you know which way the index is heading in your country or in your zone, in your market, in your time space, this can help you determine which way 3 out of 4 stocks might be heading as well. Now, let's jump straight into it. We'll start down under. This is the market that I personally trade myself. And let's just jump straight into the good stuff. Because we've made some great calls over the last couple of months and over the last year, really. We've nailed a lot of great calls. Right here was when we called this downward move. And that was way back in May, late April to May. Since then, yes, the market has continued down. Last week, okay, the very crazy series of events has been going on. A couple of weeks ago, we almost called a new uptrend. However, it was a false signal. We had to wait until the news about the whatever Gillard was announcing about the carbon tax and that sort of thing. It's thrown the market down into another downward move. Since then, last week, we were so close to another upward move. In fact, I said that for a solid signal, we'd have a close above 47.18, above that previous peak there. I was starting to buy stocks already because I was starting to get excited. However, we didn't get the solid signal, and now the market is heading downwards again. That's what happens when you don't follow your rules! Darn it! And that's also, guys, just as a side note, that's where the psychology of trading comes into play as well. Hope, greed, fear, all of that is no good. It's no good. Follow your system. And that is an excellent lesson for myself. And yeah, it's a great lesson to learn. Now, where are we at the moment? Because apart from everything, we're still in that downward trend. And as you can see, so close. We got so close to a new upward move. Just a close above that previous peak there would have done it, but alas, not yet. Now what we've got, just as a really quick side note, what does this look like to you guys? What does that look like to you, apart from a whole bunch of crazy lines on a chart? I'll just get rid of those. That is a little triangle pattern, isn't it? Exactly. Now what happens when we get a triangle pattern? It is usually the highest probability move from a triangle pattern is a continuation of the previous move. So what that means is we've got this down move right here, we've got this continuation pattern here, and it's broken out of that on Friday. So based on that particular pattern, guys, you might call it a pennant, you might call it a flag, a triangle pattern, doesn't matter what you call it. Some people call it a Davis box as well. That's exactly what it is, but to the downside. And yeah, we've basically had a breakout on Friday. Now, this is where things get interesting. And let me tell you, because this is what the pattern is saying. The pattern says, yes, we've got downward movement. We've got downward movement. It's breaking out of that pattern. That says that the pattern will continue downwards. And it will likely, like based on that pattern, the higher probability move is a new test of 4,200 eventually. It'll take time to do, but it will get there eventually. Now, apart from that, this is what I want to happen. And again, this is totally nothing to do with the system. So guys, I would follow the system. Fear, greed, hope, all of that. It's no good, but this is what I want to happen. All this stuff that's going on in the US at the moment, it's just, I don't think that it's, I don't really believe it. You know, like I think it's a lot of grandstanding, and I don't think that they're going to let the US go into default. I think that that's just the media beating it up. Again, this is just my personal opinion. So what I would like to see is the market to actually go down, maybe even down on Monday and Tuesday. Yes, it might fall a little bit, but then when Congress and the US announce that they're actually have formed a deal, which, I mean, they'd be crazy not to. It just makes no sense whatsoever. When they do form a deal, the market will go hallelujah, and it will, obviously shoot back up to the upside and finish off that that entry pattern that we were wanting last week. Now again, that's just my personal opinion. It's based on no fact in any way, shape or form. It's just basically what I want to happen. If you're looking at the charts, it's all down, guys. It's all down. And you know, when the trend does start to change, we'll be at the forefront and we'll let you know, okay? So until then, happy days. And of course, if you're going to trade short, guys, be very careful if you're trading short at the moment, because the median move for a short move is around 60 days on the All Ordinaries, okay? So 60 days. So far, we've had around 75 days, basically. 75 days of a solid downward movement. That's what we've had. And so what that means is we're potentially nearing the end of that downward move if you were to look at the median time frames for downward moves on the All Ordinaries. Hope that makes sense, guys. That is an awesome piece of information that's just based on my own personal back testing. Dow Jones, really simple stuff. Look at this upward trend. You can't beat it. It's upward trend. And look where the market has found support on Friday. Shazam, right on the upward trend line. Now, again, if they form a deal and that sort of thing, we'll bounce off that trend line, and happy days, the market will continue in its long-term uptrend. At least the market will. Whatever the economy is doing, that's another story. However, when you've got cheap money, it's hard not to buy stocks, as I imagine is what is happening there at the moment. And then, apart from that, we've got this very large continuation pattern that's forming. So if it breaks out above this top level here, which is at 12,860, 12,870 aroundabouts, that will be more upward movement based on that. So really, we're at the crossroads right now. We've got support here. It really does depend on what happens early next week as to which way the market will break out. If it breaks out to the downside, expect it's really looking like a bit of a topping pattern that will give you further downward moves, basically, if it breaks below this upward trend. However, as I said, really, we're just sort of waiting to see which way the market is going to break out. And it could be like the FTSE, which has had 8 to 10 months of sideways action. Speaking of which, this is the FTSE, and that's exactly what that looks like. So we've got, 10 times it's bounced off the top level here. The most recently, just a couple of weeks ago, where we called that again. This is really simple stuff. Very, very simple stuff. In fact, what we've got is progressively higher troughs right here, and this is happening over almost a period of a year now. It's basically 8 to 10 months so far. What we might expect for the market to happen, again, we're just waiting for it to break out either to the top side or to the downside. Not too much that you can say about that at the moment. That's a longer term view, and again, ideally you would see it break above 6,100, and then if that happens, the market would usually see higher prices from that based on basically a breakout model for trading. So really simple stuff. Nikkei again is really, really simple. We've got, what it's doing is it's doing these little continuation patterns on the Nikkei. So that's what that looks like. And again, very simple stuff. We've had a bit of fear on the Nikkei, as we have around the world, because of the thing that's going on in the US at the moment. However, also what we're forming is another little continuation pattern. So potentially what we're seeing is this continuation pattern. It might even trail downwards a little bit more. We've got a good level of support at around 9,750, around 9,700 to 9,800, in between that level there. Potentially what we might see is this market head down and then hopefully break it. If it breaks out to the upside, which is at about 10,150, that would be an upward breakout that would signal higher prices based on that particular pattern. And again, so we're seeing flags and pennants all over the place at the moment. Next up, the Shanghai Composite. And again, Shanghai Composite, this is another one that we've called. We've called short-term entry signal there, called an exit signal there, called an exit signal there, called an entry signal here, and then that really didn't go anywhere, so we were basically stopped out on the last one, which is good because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 3 out of 4, which is 75% hit rate, which is bloody brilliant, by the way. A lot of fund managers do not get that, so that's a fantastic thing. So what we're seeing at the moment is the market, well, it's basically continuing in its downward trend. And if you look at the Shanghai Composite in China, it's in a long-term downtrend. So it's gone over 2.5 years, basically the same as the US. The US is heading upwards over the last 2.5 years. The Shanghai Composite is heading downwards over the last 2 years, basically. Really not too much to say about that. Now we're in a short-term downtrend and also in a long-term downtrend on the Shanghai Composite in China. And second last, Hang Seng, very similar deal. Still in a downtrend, but what we've got here is a trough. I'll just mark this in. Trough, peak, higher trough. Now, I love the higher trough because it means if we get a close above the previous peak, that's a pretty solid entry signal. At least, it gives you a fairly solid win percentage or a win rate based on that entry signal. So if it does close above that, and also if you notice, where do the two overlap? where that trend line is. So if you're crossing above that trend line and that previous peak at the same time, happy days. That would be, that'd be a decent entry signal for some traders out there, and also myself included. So that's based on that. Until then, it still remains in the downtrend though on the Hang Seng, but it's coming close, hopefully. And again, actually, I shouldn't use that word hope. It's such a bad word, especially in the markets. It's terrible. But if it goes above that, then that would be an entry signal for myself. Last but not least is the BSE 30 Bombay Stock Exchange, and this is a great example actually, because this is very similar to the other Asian indicators. Sort of like China, Japan, and that sort of thing. And even the All Ordinaries at the moment is in this downtrend, and you'll see we get little mini reactions in between, but it always finds resistance at that trend line. And last, it has just found resistance at that trend line now. So isn't that beautiful? I think that's really quite poetic. It's a beautiful thing. You have to love it. And it happens with such regularity. It's awesome, and it can be used. In other words, if people were selling at that resistance point, which they were doing, now the market is starting to fall away again. And so it's in that short-term downtrend and a medium-term downtrend at the moment. If we were to get a close above the previous peak at approximately 19,130, that would be an entry signal based on a breakout model. Very simple stuff, not rocket science in any way, shape, or form. Until then, though, the downtrend does remain. And that is the world from a chartist point of view. Happy days, guys. Thank you so much for watching again. It's just an awesome way to spend a couple of minutes on your weekend checking out the markets. It's just a great thing to do. And also, if you know which way your market is heading, it pays to be trading in the same direction. At least if you were to believe that 3 out of 4 stocks follow the overall market. Guys, have an awesome week. This week is going to be super interesting, man. I cannot wait to see what happens. And again, we'll see whether the market is correct or whether my hoping and wishing is correct. Oh man, it'd be nice, but sometimes you just got to follow your rules. Seriously. Have a great week, guys. Happy trending. See you next week. Bye for now.